Hi, I'm Adrian Bowles, founder of Storm Insights, with a preview of new services that we're going to offer this year. Storm Insights is a new venture focused on analyzing market trends for emerging technologies. Early in 2012, I set out to find a way to help emerging tech buyers make better decisions and help vendors in these markets understand the opportunities better too. Storm Insights was founded to address the shortcomings or opportunities that I saw over and over again as I interviewed users of current analyst services. Let's start with a look at three issues that were recognized by buyers and sellers alike. First, at the big research firms, markets are defined by and aligned with analysts, and they're fine-grained. There's no way to get a consolidated view of multiple small segments, and no standards for comparison or verification. So they reflect the architecture of the research firm, not the reality of the market today. Big firms publish 120 to 150 market reports, market segment reports. But that's not how executives think about technology today. As buying decisions shift to lines of business and away from control by IT, this segmentation, this artificial segmentation, creates more problems than it solves. Next, the most popular analyst reference documents take months to prepare. Now, I know a lot of very good analysts at some of these firms. They work hard to produce quality reports. Their insights are actually very valuable. But the research process prevents them from delivering their findings and updating them in a timely fashion. So as product release cycles are shortened, annual reports are inherently going to be further and further out of date. Product releases that don't align with a publication date may be penalized for a year or more, and that's bad for vendors and buyers alike. Finally, the research process and the biases of the large firms conspire against small vendors and new technologies. It's a conservative approach that holds us back. They take a safe approach. They look for things that actually benefit very conservative organizations, perhaps. But inherently, if you're trying to use new technology, you're trying to use emerging technology for competitive differentiation, you want to be able to see what's out there, what other people are doing, as it happens. The big firms talk what my colleague Jonathan Yarmus calls SMAC, Social, Mobile, Analytics, and Cloud, but they don't segment their core advisory research that way. By the time they do, the market will have moved on to cognitive computing and augmented reality, plus additive manufacturing and a whole host of new technologies that are still in the lab but not far from being useful. The Storm approach is to create a single open data platform for use by tech buyers, sellers, investors, and analysts too. In preparing for our launch, I've been inspired by three models. The OED, or Oxford English Dictionary, which for over a century has solicited data from volunteer readers and users. But they vet it prior to publication in a proprietary deliverable. Wikipedia, where updates by users are tracked, with a visible process for collaboration and correction. And by the open source software movement, which is succeeded by always having a workable build in production, not being bound to annual release cycles, encouraging people to freely reuse content, but maintaining tight control of what goes into an authorized release. Today, we're building a research data platform that leverages all of these ideas, and it provides a free platform from which any registered, authenticated, anonymous member or user can add data and request free on-demand market maps, models, and monitors. Here's what it looks like. Markets are in the center because buyers and sellers think in terms of markets. Our predefined markets are categories like mobile, analytics, cloud, social, cognitive, augmented reality, that elusive middle layer that we talked about before. But in the real world, a buyer might be interested in something much more narrowly defined. For example, a request to tell me about the mobile analytics tools that follow specific interoperability standards and are being used by financial services client in the Czech Republic and come from vendors who have been in business for more than 4 years and have revenues of over $10 million US. Very narrow. We wanted to enable Storm users to dynamically define these micro markets for on-demand reports. Here's how we're doing it. Storm, the Systems and Technology Open Research Model, is a database that's at the heart of our platform. It's being developed with an open global community of members in mind. These are people who want access to high-quality information, organize the way they think about technology, which implies that the way we organize it may be dynamic because people change the way they think. We're developing it today with a small team of professionals, which will expand when we move our offices in the next few weeks. The model is being populated with data on products in the 6 areas I mentioned, but we won't restrict it to these areas. So we expect it to eventually contain data on everything from networking and servers to traditional enterprise apps and possibly even consumer electronics. That will be up to the community because we're not going to restrict it. My commitment is to provide the labor and the automated tools to cover the original 6 areas over the next few months. So we're committed to offering completely free access to anyone, buyer, seller, investor, analyst, you name it, for structured queries on this data in perpetuity. To support that goal and not go the Wikipedia route of telethons and soliciting funds for the database itself, we need a monetization strategy, and that's where Storm Insights, Inc., our commercial venture, comes in. Storm Insights is a Delaware C corporation, which we launched in the incubator at Boston University in 2012, and which will be moving to new space in the Watson School of Engineering on the campus of Binghamton University in Binghamton, New York, in just a few weeks. This move will allow us to bring Storm to the public in a few months, and then launch a suite of products that analyze the Storm query data to identify trends and events of interest to our commercial clients. Here's how it'll work. Anyone can register as a member of our community at no charge by providing standard demographic information and an email address to verify that or to validate the account. Assume for the moment that the Storm database is fully populated. The process to populate and vet it includes our team, seller-provided data, publicly available data, and user or community-provided data, but assume for a moment that that's all in there. We won't go into all the details today. We'll have a variety of standard reports that can be generated on demand based on the current state of the data. We're already hard at work entering data on hundreds of products and vendors, but it's a community effort, so the value to each user will increase over time as more data is entered. As the query is processed, we send a copy to a query database. We actually analyze the queries in the context of who has asked it, what are their attributes, what do we know about them. The basic query services are designed to be free and only require minimal effort to register to create an authenticated anonymous personal profile. Premium services based on profiles are likely to be rolled out in future releases. Here's a quick look at some of the vendor services we'll be offering later in the year. And here, as we showed in the architecture diagram, these are based on analysis of the query data in context, not just the Storm data, and that's why they're the premium services for our commercial clients. I'm happy to say that we have a great team in place to ensure that we can execute on this vision. My business model advisors are all longtime friends and colleagues. I think I've known most of them for over 20 years, who weren't afraid to challenge my assumptions. Bob, Jerry, and Jerry. I think the world of them. Evan and Brock, my development advisor and CTO, have been collaborators with me in the past on a variety of projects and companies, and they've kept me focused on building a scalable solution that's going to allow us to meet some very aggressive goals as we ramp up Storm this year and in the coming years. We are an analytics firm, not an analyst firm, so it was important to me to recruit top independent analysts and academics for each of our initial coverage areas to advise me on the most important companies and products we have in Storm, the database, when we launch. So I've worked with Maribel Lopez and Jonathan Yarmus in the past and admired their work for years before we even met. I invited Claudia Imhoff and Jeff Kaplan to participate based on the great work they're doing with their own organizations, where they are leaders in analytics and cloud computing, respectively. I've known Avram Barr since my early days in AI and followed his work with software engineering at Stanford for the last decade. Tom Furness is the newcomer on the team. He's a virtual reality pioneer whose work changed the way we think of cockpit displays and the way things work in virtual reality. And he's influenced a generation of researchers. We met on a project about 5 years ago, and I knew that I wanted him to advise us as soon as we started looking at augmented reality. We're very focused on the user experience, so I'm going to lean on Jamie Murphy. She's got a consulting practice, a great consulting practice on design in New York City. We'll be leaning on her throughout the process for improving the user experience. I'm humbled at this point to have such a great all-star team advising me at such an early stage. Finally, I'll acknowledge Mackenzie, who's been my right-hand person on this effort. Although her job title and description seem to change month to month, her good nature and dedication to the Storm vision has remained intact for over a year. So that's the Storm and Storm Insight story. What's next? I'd like to encourage you to register on our site soon to get updates on our progress and early access to our data. In a few weeks, we'll begin formal demos and open up an interface to have the community, or to enable the community to put data in on companies and products that will complement what we're already doing with the internal team. It's a long journey, but we've taken our first steps, and we'd like to have you with us as we move forward. So thank you, and feel free to reach out to me personally if you need more information, if you'd like to find out how to get involved, if you have any questions. Thanks again.